Hello, everyone. Scotty White, World Combat Sports. Welcome once again. We in the building. WCS coming to you with a mixed martial arts breakdown of UFC 248. Man, you know what it is. Hey, I'm excited about this fight. We're going to get to the undercard, but of course, I have to start off with the main event. The main event is one of the biggest events of the UFC right now because they're still searching for a division that's taken over, that's hot. Shout out to everyone that's tuning in to World Combat Sports. Be sure to smash the thumbs up button when you join. I truly appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already did so. And also show some love to follow me on IG. And if you choose to donate to the channel, I'm more than grateful for it. Support is always welcome. Real talk. Torres Savage, what's good? What's good? Say good afternoon, Scotty, World Combat Sports, man. Salute to you, Torres Savage, man. Torres Savage, hope everything is going well with you, my brother. So this is going to be about UFC 248. First and foremost, you know, it's been a long time coming that we actually get a champion, you know, that we can kind of dig in and relate to. I like Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker, the previous champion. Hey, I'm not gonna lie. I thought he had some of the best hands when it comes to boxing in mixed martial arts. I truly did. I know he had some, you know, some situations where he was facing opponents, and it was questionable as to how he was going to do. He had some early losses in his career. You know what I'm saying? But when he was actually in the UFC, I think the only loss that he had was Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and I believe Court McGee, I think. I'm not all the way sure. But right now, Yoel Romero's record is 13-4. 13-4. And his early loss was against Rafael Feijoa. If y'all remember that fight, man, they was going back and forth. I'm talking about Yoel was landing bombs. It's one of the only fights that you will see Yoel Romero really standing in the pocket, trading punches. We're talking about a guy whose cardio really wasn't all that, you know, it wasn't dependable. But he was standing and trading with Feijoa until Feijoa sent a right high kick. I would say a right roundhouse, went over the head of Romero, and then followed through with a spinning technique. He hit him with his left arm on the follow through from the kick. And it caught Yoel Romero, dropped him. Feijoa pounced on him, did some punch, you know, some ground and pound a bit, punches from the top, and he was able to get the stoppage. That was Yoel Romero, man, being stopped in the UFC. But since then, you know, his losses, his other three losses came twice to Robert Whittaker, who is currently the middleweight champion. And then lastly, he went in there against Paulo Costa, and he lost via decision. A lot of people thought he won, you know what I'm saying? And some people thought Costa won. I was kind of torn, man. I was like, damn, you know, you've been in there with Robert Whittaker twice. You should know what it takes to be in this position. Go get it done. And he wasn't able to do that. Now, how the stars align, people. Yoel Romero gets another shot. I'm going to be honest. He didn't get the shot from beating anyone in particular. He got the shot because Paulo Costa decided to have bicep surgery out of nowhere. Paulo Costa was the man that was there to step up and face Israel Adesanya for his defense. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was supposed to be one of the toughest bouts of Adesanya's career. Now, Yoel Romero comes in here, and he is slated to be one of the toughest opponents that Adesanya ever had. So let's go to Israel Adesanya, right? Let's kind of talk about the backstory of both fighters. The backstory is you have a high-level Cuban wrestler who has won 6 worlds and Olympian medals together. And he has such a pedigree when he was a Cuban freestyle wrestler. No one wanted to face Yoel Romero, man. He was a beast. Dude was a beast. He was in the 2000 Olympics. He won a silver medal, came back for the '04, didn't fare too well. He just was outside at number 4. He came in 4th place, but still, he was a wrestler to be feared. You know what I'm saying? And he decided to come over here and take up mixed martial arts. You know, of course, that was in transition with his wrestling, but anybody will tell you, if you ever want to join MMA, the wrestlers always the ones that, you know, kind of have an advantage because you're dealing with multifaceted striking techniques that you have to learn. And if you have a wrestling base, that's all the better. You know, you need to work on your boxing, work on your jiu-jitsu, but great takedown defense is everything. And also, Yoel Romero came in the sport around April 2013. Now, Israel Adesanya, he was a professional kickboxer, man. He did fairly good over there. Respectable kickboxer, right? He came in the freaking UFC February 2018. If you take February 2018 and then you take April 2013, that's like a 5-year difference of a lead that Yoel Romero had on Israel Adesanya. You'd think that Romero would have been up here just knocking heads off. You know what I'm saying? Just knocking heads off, establishing that he was one of the most dominant fighters, just really being that guy that Adesanya would, at this point in time, would have had to come and see. Romero should have been the fighter that Adesanya was coming to see. But in fact, you know, he had some questionable fights where he should have won, you know, i.e. Robert Whittaker, you know, Paulo Acosta. He should have won those fights. Let's look at Israel Adesanya, 18-0. Like I said, he came in the sport 2018, right? He came in and he stopped Rob Wilkinson. Don't know too many people unless you follow the sport. You don't know who Rob Wilkinson is, so I'm gonna move on. Then he faced Marvin Vettori. It was a stand-up battle, back and forth. You know, we're trying to figure out who is Adesanya. Show us something. You know, show us the kickboxing, show us some of that MVP striking, show us your kicks, punches. We know that you're a kickboxer, but how are you going to transfer that over to mixed martial arts? He won that fight via decision. Then he steps in with Brad Tavares. Brad Tavares is known as a durable mixed martial artist. He's known to go the distance. I believe in his career, he only been stopped once. But stepping in there with Adesanya, he just didn't do enough to put away some rounds and make the fight close. And what you would see in the UFC is a lot of fighters that, or what I call retread opposition. They have been in there with tier names, but they haven't came out on top most of the time. But they're still quality enough of an opponent to step in there in the first place. That's Brad Tavares. Brad Tavares is that fighter. So, of course, Yoel Romero has faced Brad Tavares early in his career. I think way earlier, like in 2013, 2014, I think. And then in 2018, Adesanya faced him. So you have Wilkinson, you have Vettori, and then you had Brad Tavares. And next was supposed to be a step-up fight for Adesanya. He stepped in there with Derek Brunson. Derek Brunson was an opponent who was known to come forward, pressure you, and throw punches. But if you want to talk about one underlying issue that you would think him training in the gym that he would correct, it might not be mentally something that he choose to be open-minded about, to change up his style. Some people feel like they need to be the force. You know what I'm saying? They need to be the hammer. And I think that's what Derek Brunson coming in the cage. He thinks he needs to be the hammer and he gets knocked out. So he went in there against Adesanya and was stopped in the first round. And you heard what I just said about Derek Brunson, right? He believes he needs to be the hammer. Well, Derek Brunson, has been stopped by multiple fighters. He's been stopped by Adesanya. He's been stopped by Ronaldo Sosa twice. I mean, he's been stopped. I believe Robert Whittaker stopped him. The man refuses to change up his game plan. Anyway, Adesanya, he disperses the Derek Brunson in the first round. Then he steps in there with the legend himself, Anderson the Spider Silva. At this point in time, we ain't talking about the Anderson Silva that we used to seeing, being the Matrix and everything. Hey, Anderson Silva was coming off 2 bad losses against Chris Weidman. Before he stepped in there with Adesanya, Anderson Silva was 1-4. He had won once and lost 4 times, y'all. Yeah, man, he was 1-4. So him coming into this fight with Adesanya was more like, if you're on the outside looking in, right, you're saying to yourself, man, I wonder which Silva we're going to see. How does he look? Especially a Silva that has been vindicated for popping, dirty in the past. He had been vindicated. I'm glad too, because that kind of tarnished his career. And people was looking down on him like, man, you're a legend, but you're a cheat. And he was vindicated. But anyway, sticking to the topic, Anderson Silva, man, steps in there with the guy who was his idol. Adesanya idolized freaking Anderson Silva. Some of what you see in the way Adesanya moves in the ring, you see a lot of in freaking Anderson Spider Silva, right? But when they fought, I was just so fearful in a way for Anderson Silva, because we saw when he stepped in there with Chris Weidman, the first time Chris Weidman knocked him out for playing, he had his hands down and he was trying to act like he was still the young Anderson Silva, where he can be this close to you and elude punches. And he was doing that with Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman knocked him out. And then he returned and broke his leg because Chris Weidman checked the kick, snapped it in half. So in here with Adesanya, I wanted to see what Silva we was getting. And pretty much Adesanya controlled the pace. Not one time did he allow Adesanya, not one time did Adesanya allow Silva to gain any momentum. He didn't allow him to do anything. Even though Silva was pressuring him and he was standing in front of him, he was trying to close. He had one point where he tried to land a flying knee up against the cage. It missed. Adesanya was over in the middle of the cage, and Anderson Silva was up there rubbing the gate like, I almost had you. But listen, at this point in competition, it ain't no almost. When you have a fighter like Anderson Silva that has the history he does, everything he does has to count against a young warrior like Adesanya. And he couldn't get it done in there. He just couldn't get it done. He was too slow. He was a step off, and his career had come and gone. Now, is he still competitive enough to go in there and fight some other fighters that's veterans? Sure. But Israel Adesanya was the wrong matchup for Anderson Silva if he believed he was going to play that drop your hands down by your waist, move your head barely. No, Adesanya was making him pay. Believe it. He was making Silva pay. What's good? What's good? Charles in the building. What's good? Salute to you. Justin Austin, what's good? Is this staph infection something serious, or it's just a fluff? I haven't been up on the research on the fight. I'm gonna get to that point. I'm not there yet, but salute to Justin Austin, man, in the building. South Straight Talk. Good to have you on board. If you haven't, just smash the like button, everybody. Appreciate it. So Anderson Silva is gone. That's another. That's one of the supposed to be the toughest opponent that Adesanya is supposed to face, right? So sitting ringside, you had Kevin Gastelum. Kevin Gastelum is known, man. He's respectable in the UFC. He's respectable, got wrestling background, pretty good hands too. So he was ringside with his interim UFC belt, middleweight interim, and they was waiting to make the fight for the interim title against Kevin Gastelum and Adesanya. And after Adesanya defeated Silva, he turned over there to Kevin Gastelum and said, "Take that belt off." Man, I can't believe you wore that belt over here. Take that belt off. So when him and Gastelum stepped into the cage, listen, it was a more entertaining fight than I actually thought. I'm gonna be honest. When I did my live on Israel Adesanya, and after he fought Brad Tavares, I made a mention that I think in his next 3 fights he's gonna take an L. I just didn't see this power striker. I knew he can kick, I knew he can punch, but I was looking at the competition ahead of him, and I was like, I'm not just sold on Adesanya yet. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sold on this cat because I know he was a kickboxer. He was one of the elites. But over here in mixed martial arts, man, how's his ground game? What is he going to do when he run into a wrestler? So when he stepped in there, I went Gastelum. I'm like, damn, Gastelum is the one to do it. And boy, it turned out to a really good fight. Like Gastelum really took it to Adesanya. He was able to hurt Gastelum. Gastelum was able to land a high left kick and stun Adesanya. Really the first time we ever seen Adesanya stun. He recovered nicely and he went on to win the fight via decision. So the next fight, you know what, obviously is what Adesanya's been working for. Adesanya, as a mixed martial artist, is one of the most fast-track fighters that you will see in this era. I told you already that Adesanya came into mixed martial arts. I mean, I'm talking about the UFC mixed martial arts platform, February of 2018. That hasn't been that long ago. And the man is already close to setting records with the most knockdowns in only 7 fights. The only one that's above him is Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva has 13 knockdowns in 19 fights. But let's be clear, Anderson Silva's competition has been much more credible than Adesanya. But we'll leave that to the end, though. But let's stick to him stepping in there with Robert Whittaker. Like I told you, Robert Whittaker was my guy to the point where I say, man, his hands is much more thorough. He has more power than Adesanya. He can kick with Adesanya. So this fight should be fairly equally competitive. They get in there, and I'm looking at Robert Whittaker. I say, damn, he's pressing pretty hard. Because I'm thinking Robert Whittaker and his team believe they can go in there and knock Adesanya out. And then, Adesanya in the fight starts slowly but surely earning my respect. I was like, shit, he's pretty good with his defense. Not just the defense to avoid punches, but how he's using his footwork to exit, to reset, to make his opponent miss. And he was doing that a lot with Robert Whittaker. And Robert did land some punches in that fight. But I'm going to tell you, when Adesanya began to drop Robert Whittaker, I say, oh, shit. This fighter might be a bit stronger than we thought. You know what I'm saying? His accuracy may substitute for the power. His precision, rather. His precision may substitute for the power. And when he dropped Robert Whittaker the second time and closed him out in the second round, I was like, damn, I never would have thought he would stop Robert Whittaker, who's been in there with some tough opposition. He's been in with Yoel Romero twice already. Like you never would have convinced me that Robert Whittaker, being in there with Yoel Romero twice, he would have got stopped by Adesanya. So now Adesanya becomes the middleweight world champion. He becomes the middleweight world champion. So let's go full circle. Who is the only one that's up there in the rankings to face Israel Adesanya? It's Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa was coming off I wouldn't say superb win, but it was respectable win over Yoel Romero. So Yoel Romero had lost twice against Robert Whittaker, stepping there against Paulo Costa, and he lost that one. So what better opposition to throw in there with Adesanya than Paulo Costa? And guess what? Acosta goes in and have bicep surgery without telling anyone. He just goes in and have bicep surgery. And they're like, nah, this is a big fight. Like Paulo Costa is supposed to be the next new and up and coming star, man. This dude is chiseled like an Adonis. Him and freaking Yoel Romero have some of the best physiques in the sport of mixed martial arts. That was supposed to be the fight. And Paulo Costa showed he has much more to his repertoire, right? He goes in and have bicep surgery. So Dana White and the matchmakers, they had to, jump through hoops, and then they end up assigning Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero is on his fourth big fight. Robert Whittaker, Paulo Costa, 0-3. Now he's in there with Israel Adesanya, y'all. This is for the title. This weekend, the middleweight title. Now, what we know about Yoel Romero is that his experience, if he's going in there with a fight like this, he has the experience and the cage time to give Adesanya a very solid fight. That we know, right? We know it. Let me get to some of the comments. Justin said, yeah, I thought Robert was going to get him. I was nervous for Israel. Robert was too anxious too. I agree with you on that. Robert Whittaker, in my opinion, I think it was more so personal issues outside with his daughter having an ailment. It has just recently came out that, he was going to be the bone marrow donor to his daughter because she was going through medical issues. So I'm not putting excuses in there. I'm not trying to put an overlay, but all I'm saying is he might have had some stuff going on. You know what I'm saying? That we didn't know about heading into that fight. The way he was rushing in and he was not respecting the range, not respecting the striking ability, period, for Israel. He ended up getting knocked out. I don't know if it was almost a relief for him not to have the belt so he can just focus on his family and not be in training camp, to defend his title. I mean, I'm just saying, because he did have some issues going on personally. But back to Adesanya and Romero. Talking about common opponents early. Well, let's talk about Brad Tavares, Derek Brunson. Yoel Romero common opponents, man. Yoel Romero has some common opponents that he's faced. Derek Brunson being for one. Derek Brunson and Israel Adesanya both defeated Derek Brunson. I said again, Romero and Adesanya both defeated Derek Brunson. They both defeated Brad Tavares. Commonalities in opposition. Now, what I learned not to do is simply say, well, who finished who faster? You know what I'm saying? You can't do that in mixed martial arts, man. I'm telling you, because you will fall off real quick. Like you would lose money so fast if you basically took opponent that fought before and then say, well, he did this to him. The same thing is going to happen to this. It doesn't work that way in mixed martial arts. It just doesn't, man. The aura is different. You know what I'm saying? The format changes. It's just not that case. So Yoel has faced Brunson and Tavares. And then, he's faced, in my opinion, much more top-tier competition than Israel Adesanya. He's faced Chris Weidman. He's faced Loyola Machida. We all know, hey, y'all remember when he faced Tim Kennedy? My comrade in Army Special Forces, man. Man, I like Tim Kennedy, man. I like how he was representing the veterans, you know what I'm saying? And he was going in there fighting, for his country. And he was fighting, to be a legitimate, respected mixed martial artist. And what happened between Yoel Romero and Tim Kennedy is that in the third round, Yoel Romero tried to, I'm telling you, the Cubans, they do this shit all the time, man. He brought the stool in the cage to in between the second and third round. And they're there, attending to Romero. So the referee in boxing, they say, seconds out. You know what I'm saying? That means everybody leave the ring. So Romero is still sitting there on his stool when the referee is basically saying, okay, everybody get out the cage. Let's go. Romero's sitting there on the stool. And he's trying to act like he don't know English, man. Romero, man, he is a funny dude, dog. Romero's trying to act like he don't understand English. Like his corner is left, and he's sitting there on the stool. And I think they probably told him, "Hey, just sit on the stool. You know what's going to happen. They're going to warn you and this, that, and the other." Leading up to that break in between after the second round, he was tired. He was exhausted. Tim Kennedy was on the brink of defeating Yoel Romero. That would have been his fourth tough loss because Tim Kennedy should have won that fight. Referee gets the stool out. He starts the fight. And when you know it, damn near closing out the third round, Yoel Romero was able to stop Tim Kennedy. I mean, if you're talking about indirectly cheating, I'm talking about just playing the system. That's exactly what Yoel Romero was able to do. He tried to act like he didn't understand English. He stayed on the stool longer than he should, and Tim Kennedy ended up being the victim. And somehow he caught a second win, and he was able to stop Tim Kennedy in the third round. So, you know, dealing with the Lyoto Machidas and the Chris Weidmans. That's why I'm saying Yoel Romero has the better competition. He stepped in there with Chris Weidman, man. Let's be honest. Chris Weidman is respected, you know. Chris Weidman wrestling wasn't respected. His jiu-jitsu game. And he had good hands. We're talking about the Chris Weidman, man, that went in there against Anderson Silva twice. The first time he knocked him out with punches. The second time he snapped his leg in half, checking Silva's kick. So you would think that Chris Weidman going in here with Yoel Romero, he's good. Because Yoel Romero really don't have a good gas tank, right? Chris Weidman takes Yoel Romero, a Cuban Olympic wrestler. He takes him down, y'all. Almost the same thing that John Jones proved that he can do to DC. Two different styles of wrestlers, but you know, freaking Romero being a freestyle and from my understanding, DC being Greco-Roman wrestler, right? So he takes Romero down. Romero makes it back to his feet. And people talk about this all the time about them Cuban wrestlers. They always try to play the facial game, like they play mind games with their opposition. They make it seem like they may be more exhausted than they really are. And that's kind of what Yoel Romero was doing. Like he would only strike when he felt it was it's the opportune time. Like it was the perfect time to strike. Yoel Romero, early in his career, he just didn't use strength to just go all out. He will make sure when it's time for him to strike, it's the most damning, punishing, degrading strike he can land. So with Chris Weidman, who was landing punches, you know, Yoel Romero is landing his punches here and there, but Chris Weidman is fluent. He's looking loose in there. All of a sudden, Chris Weidman felt he had success with taking Yoel Romero down earlier. And Romero had, you know, he showed no signs of really being concerned about Chris Weidman's wrestling. You know how some people, you know, they worried about takedowns, so every time the wrestler faints, they get a reaction out of their opposition? Romero wasn't too worried about that. So the next time Chris Weidman shot in, out of nowhere, Romero landed that knee. I mean, he split Weidman open. It was one of the most beautiful knees outside of Jorge Masvidal and Ben Askren. I'm not gonna lie, man. It's some other nice knees in the UFC, of course. But I'm just saying, that knee came out of nowhere. No setup, no nothing. Chris Weidman on the fast twitch, on the decision to actually move his body to change levels, Romero landed a flying knee and the game was over. It's a wrap. Done. Period. I mean, it's one of the highlight reel knockouts that you'll see in Romero's career. So, of course, you know, Ronaldo Sosa, well respected in his jiu-jitsu game. I believe he's a BJJ world champion. He's been in there with some pretty tough competition too in the UFC. He hasn't fared as well as many thought he would coming over here with his jiu-jitsu background. He hasn't fared as well, but Yoel defeated Sosa. Yoel has a victory over Sosa. So after that victory over Weidman, man, he steps in there with Robert Whittaker the first time, and the two go back and forth exchanging. I mean, they was in a war. And this was the time for Yoel to finally get the belt. If he was to prove that he is to be respected as one of the best ever in the UFC amongst that company, Robert Whittaker was the guy. And he couldn't get it done. He couldn't get it done. He lost a split decision. It was a very tough fight. It could have went either way. It depends on who was judging the fight. It was an exciting fight, though. And, you know, looking at Robert Whittaker, I say, man, he's going to be champion for a long time. Can't nobody fuck with him. He's good. Robert Whittaker's good. Can't nobody fuck with Robert Whittaker. He won that with Yoel Romero. Automatic rematch, right? Automatic rematch. They stepped in there in 2017, and then the rematch happened sometime in 2018. Yoel Romero steps in there again, loses split decision. 2 losses. The first one was a unanimous. The second was a split. I thought the first one was a split, but no, the second was a split. The first one was a unanimous decision. That's over. That's a wrap. You get 2 times to defeat the champion, Robert Whittaker, and you can't do it. So Romero is just out right now. You know what I'm saying? So Romero goes and have a grappling match. So he returns and he faced Paulo Costa to keep his name up at the top tier of the ranking system for title contention. So he faced this guy, Paulo Costa, which is extremely shredded. And a lot of people are saying, damn, is this cat clean? Like, is this a clean fighter? Can he fight? Does he have cardio? And we saw him go in there and literally dismantle Uriah Hall. Seriously. The way he sat up there and took that punishment from Uriah Hall, we're talking about Uriah Hall that shut down Gegard Mousasi with a reverse kick and then went over there and landed a knee. We're talking about Uriah Hall that has been known to have superb performances. But Paulo Costa shut him down, man, and stopped him. Now it leads up to Israel Adesanya and Yoel Romero. You know why? Because Paulo Costa decided to have bicep surgery. And if you probably want to know my prediction and strength and weaknesses of both fighters, I will tell you that. Yoel Romero is the challenger, of course. Israel Adesanya is the middleweight champion. The good thing about this fight is it's good enough for people to come out and see Yoel one last time. Believe me, the Tim Kennedy, the Robert Whittaker ×2, and now he loses against Paulo Costa. That should have been 4 right there. So he goes in here with another top tier opposition, the champion, Israel Adesanya, to prove a point. Now, you heard me say earlier about his wrestling, right? How as a freestyle wrestler, he was in the 2000 Olympics, 2004, right? And he has world championships, Olympic championship, all that. But one crazy distractor that will leave you dumbfounded is that Yoel Romero doesn't use his wrestling ability. He will use it to prevent a takedown sometimes. But Yoel Romero, you would think he was pulling off the old Matt Hughes, Frank Trigg, George St. Pierre. He would be shooting in for a takedown whenever it presented itself. Not Romero. Romero don't. He like to use his hands. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't kick that much, but he somehow he's enamored with using his hands. He doesn't even really go to his striking when it comes to freaking inserting his wrestling ability, man, to take people to the ground. And you know what's another crazy aspect to Romero's game that he chooses to leave out? He don't go for many submissions. Romero do not go for many submissions. Being a top elite wrestler that he is, he chooses to be soft with his wrestling. I mean, I'm talking about wrestling as far as going in, level changing, going for a single double on a consistent basis. He don't do it. Once he gets his opponent to the ground, he really ain't trying to sub him out. He land punches. It's the most wildest, ooh wee moment like, what is going on here? You have a top elite wrestler. Why isn't he learning or enhancing his jiu-jitsu game? Why isn't he reciprocating that inside the cage? Why isn't it being implemented? Because I'm gonna tell you the truth. That's what everybody is dying to know right now in this fight. Is Yoel Romero going to go in there and try to take Israel Adesanya down? Because if you look at Adesanya's fights, it really haven't been a fighter to come in there, take him down, and really do some serious damage to degrade the striker. You know what I'm saying? That's what separates Adesanya and John Jones. John Jones, he would go in for a takedown if he chooses to. I'm not really talking about the Dominique Reyes, okay? Because he took him down in the 4th or 5th. We got it. But I'm talking about some other fights that he's been in where he needed to use his wrestling, and he did. Yoel Romero in here with Adesanya, in my opinion, really hasn't been tested against a true bona fide elite wrestler like Yoel Romero to actually continue to go in for the takedown, continue to keep him guessing. It's not like Adesanya is winning fights with flying knees. It's not like Adesanya has a plethora of freaking knockout reel highlights from head kicks. He's striking with his legs and hands. That is what Adesanya is doing. So what better opponent for Yoel Romero to go in there and change up the game plan and change levels much more and keep Adesanya guessing so he won't be just so comfortable with sitting back and throwing his strikes, throwing his punches, throwing the counters. And then for Adesanya against Yoel Romero, many of us will have a conversation like, this guy has made it to the top fairly quick. He's 18-0. He only came in the UFC February 2018, right? He's made it to the top of the food chain fairly quick. But it's still something missing from Adesanya. Now, granted, he's growing on me. I'm not totally sold on Adesanya, but he's growing on me, man, as being a legitimate bona fide striker. And if he's able to go in here with the right game plan against Romero, man, it can make for a superstar in the UFC that's going to lead to one of the biggest fights that's ever been a part of the organization. Mark my word on it. Mark my word when I tell you that. Israel Adesanya kicks. He probably looked at the Paulo Costa film and he's probably saying, you know what? I can kick the shit out of Romero. Paulo Costa did it. I'm going to do it too. So expect Adesanya to get off his kicks early. Believe that. He is a former kickboxer, man. He's going to get off his kicks early. Then hopefully if the kicks starting to slow Romero down, he would start adding those kick punch combinations or those punch kick combinations. That's how Adesanya get down. You don't see a lot of shots. You don't see him changing levels trying to go. And he's not going to waste his energy doing that with Romero. And you know what? If Romero allowed Adesanya to get one takedowns, it's his own downfall. He ain't focused. It's a lot that's probably going on. A lot of people are going to be disappointed. If an elite wrestler like Romero allow someone who doesn't even really have a top tier elite wrestling pedigree to take him down, then you know what? He deserves it. But anyway, I believe Adesanya is going to keep it on the feet like Paulo Costa. He's going to use his range well. He's going to, put that lead jab out there as a measuring and really try to set Romero up for some shots. Now, when it comes to power between these two, a part of me still says that Romero has more power. He's an explosive dude, man. What 40-year-old man you're going to see do a backflip off the rip, a standing backflip off the rip in a tight space like that when they was on stage at the press conference? Romero's an athletic dude. If you ever watched his open workouts, he has some of the best open workouts you would ever see in mixed martial arts. He is a freak of freaking nature. Let me get some of these comments. From hearing what Romero was saying in his interviews and his lunch press yesterday, and talking about that small mistake Izzy commits, I have a feeling he's finna strike with him most of the time, and that's a good assessment. You know, there, Bo. That's a good assessment. I was actually taking a look at that too. But you know, in the fight game, a lot of mind games is played in the press conferences. A lot of mind games come from that platform. I would be hard pressed to think that Romero will put anything out there, any tidbits out there for Adesanya to digest as nutritional value. You know what I'm saying? Heading into such a big fight. These Cuban fighters, man, they are some crafty individuals. They are crafty, smart individuals, man. Like I said before, look at a Cuban fighter. Look at them. Romero, I'm put two up there. Romero and Luis Ortiz. Every time Luis Ortiz get knocked down, how does his face look? He has this look like, huh? No sé, papi. What? ¿Qué pasó? He act like he doesn't know what's going on. Like, I didn't get knocked down. You didn't see me get knocked down. I'm good. What are you counting for? You know, he always has the same look. You know, both times he got knocked down in the fight with Deontay Wilder, the first time he had the same look. And when he got up over there at MGM, he had the same look. Yoel Romero, when these cats want to play dumb, they play dumb. And it's hilarious. They are some very clever, sneakish individual. Both said, don't you think kicking someone like Yoel with his wrestling credentials is a mistake and might leave him open? Costa did it, but Costa is 3 times the size. Costa's 3 times the size of Costa. Costa did it, but you must be talking about Costa 3 times. Costa's not 3 times bigger than Yoel Romero. There's no way. You know, they was both in the same weight class and both chiseled to the bone. You know what I'm saying? But he wasn't 3 times bigger than Yoel Romero. But if you're talking about Adesanya, Costa hasn't faced Adesanya yet. He was supposed to, but he didn't. Okay. But I can only talk about the link up. There's no way for me to link up Paulo Costa to Adesanya because they haven't fought. But I can link up Paulo Costa to Yoel Romero. And Yoel Romero, the kicks that he took from Paulo Costa, in my opinion, to be honest, when he does his roundhouse, when he does his high kicks, it got some sting to it. Costa's kicks has more power, in my opinion, than Adesanya. Adesanya, man, when he cashes in, he makes sure his kicks are punctual, on time, and there's funds in the bank. That's what freaking Adesanya does. He might not have the most powerful kicks, but Paulo Costa, when he kicked Romero, it has some sting to it. That man has some power behind his kicks. So I'm thinking like this. Though Adesanya understands he's in there with an elite wrestler, once again, we have to look back on Romero not using his wrestling ability. And also the way that Adesanya executes his kicks. Adesanya goes for the low calf kick a lot. He goes for the low calf kick, inside, outside. It don't matter. Adesanya doesn't really throw the high kick until he sees the best opportunity, the best window of opportunity to land that kick. I mean, that's the beauty of him being one of the most lethal strikers in the UFC. He picks the opportune time to do that. I gotta give him his props for that. Justin said if he beats Romero, then I'm all in. Israel, like you said, he does have good footwork and he get back in the striking game. He really has that know-how. Israel is one of the best strikers in mixed martial arts right now, man. If you're talking about Paulo Costa's 3 times the size of Adesanya, I would think he's double. I don't think he's that much bigger. You know, when people have muscle mass vice height, you know what I'm saying? You got to take the height, stature, and you got to compare it to Paulo Costa. But Costa is a big dude. He's a big striker. But the same can be said about Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero has always been known to look the fittest of his opposition. That's real talk. He's always been that guy to look the fittest of his opposition. The one thing that's going to be a dilemma for people to commit to Yoel Romero is the fact that he's been to this stage before and he came up short. He's came up short. So therefore, he's stepping in there with another champion. This champion doesn't fight like Robert Whittaker. This champion in Adesanya already defeated Robert Whittaker. So now Romero has to step in there with really, in my opinion, a different game plan. It's 5 rounds, 5 minutes each. If I was Romero, I would definitely try to implement more takedowns early on. Don't wait like John Jones till he's falling behind in the fight to go for a takedown. I would try to hit Adesanya early because look, like I said before, Romero is not going in there level changing and giving his opponent something to think about. His opponents just know they're in there with an elite Olympics wrestler who is one of the best at that level, right? But they're looking at his mixed martial arts career and it hasn't been that way. Like Yoel Romero is not going in here taking shots every moment of opportunity. He doesn't do it. So Adesanya is going to go in there like, well, you know, should we just practice on stand-up game? You know, setting different traps. Don't worry too much about the freaking takedowns until it happened. I'm pretty sure Adesanya has been working on his ground game, but I'm just saying. But you have to take in consideration that once Yoel Romero takes a fighter down, he may switch or he may change positions and take the back. But when he is able to have dominant position on the back, he isn't trying to go for RNC. He isn't trying to sink in any hooks. He isn't trying any of that ground game jiu-jitsu type technique. He isn't trying to lock in a sub, man. He's just trying to punch you. You know, Romero, in my opinion, is much more lethal on his feet because when he gets to the ground, he's not doing anything to have people oohing and on. Like he's not delivering that Khabib the Magomedov freaking pressure on the ground. Khabib is there to cause your heart to pump triple the time that it would normally, to allow it to explode because he's on you with that much pressure and he's landing punches to your freaking head. He has you in such a pool of anxiety that you'll do anything to get out of that position. Yoel Romero doesn't put you in a state of anxiety. He doesn't allow you to cringe. Romero is not that fighter when he gets you on the ground. Don Dollar, what's good, man? Salute to you. Bo said, do you think Izzy got the power to KO Romero, especially with Romero having his neck fused so it don't move much? Is going to just pepper him with punches? Good question, Bo. Good question. Here's my thought on Romero's neck. First of all, you know, what does I do, Bo? You know, what does I do? Mixed martial arts? Moving your neck, unless you're rolling with the punches, you're going to basically move. You have to use your foot movement. You're going to have to use lateral movement, moving your body. Head movement, the only person, like I said earlier, that I really see using head movement just like side to side, man, right up close in person is Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva did that a lot, you know, early in his career. He was able to be elusive like that. You know, the kick that he kicked Vitor Belfort with the teep kick from the front. You know, I mean, it's only one person I know that's standing right up there in the pocket and don't really take a step back. He would just lean at the waist. Romero doesn't have that type of head movement. Romero doesn't have that type of fluidity. To answer your question about Izzy, does he have the punching power to stop Yoel Romero? I told you earlier, I don't know if he was on yet, But when he fought Fejao early in his career, Fejao kicked the right side high kick and went over the head of Yoel Romero. And in the process of him missing the kick, he followed up with a spinning technique and caught Yoel Romero on the top of his cap and dropped him. Who else has really dropped Romero to the point had him in serious trouble? Did Robert Whittaker do it? It was some adversity in that fight. Do I believe Robert Whittaker has more punching power than Adesanya? I don't know, man. I just thought he had the wrong game plan. If Izzy is able to fatigue Yoel Romero with a crucial pace at 40 plus years old, I think he can stop Yoel Romero. I think he can. But I think it's going to be set up with a kick. Because he's been susceptible to kicks. I think if anything happens, Izzy will set Romero up with a high kick, hurt him, and then move in with punches. Man, one thing I can say about Adesanya's striking ability is that he is precise with landing his punches. And we all know when you have a kicker like Adesanya, we have a kicker like Paulo Acosta, what's going to happen? When they land, that shin to head will do more damage than a punch most of the time, especially if the fighter is fatigued. So I'm saying if the pace is what it is early on in the fight and he's able to land a high kick to stun Romero, we might see Romero go down, man. I think Adesanya has the patience to be that fighter, to hurt Romero with a kick, and then close distance and attempt to close out the fight with a knockout stoppage. But like I said before, Romero is a sneaky type of dude, man, when it comes to his explosiveness. Like, it's no wind up. It's not the Dan Henderson, Dan Henderson got the H-bomb right. Sometimes Dan Henderson will have that thing cocked, right? And Hindu will be there like, his opponent be like, shit, Hindu still got that hand cocked. You know what I'm saying? And we're talking about, look, Dan Henderson has one of the most lethal right hands in the game back then. But he will walk around with that thing cocked like this. Yoel Romero, it's not much he does that gives you a Hallmark card. Seriously. It's not much he does that's going to tell you that, oh, he's about to do this. The man is very, very explosive, man. And that's the only thing I'm thinking. For him to catch Adesanya when he's thinking about committing to maybe a punch or a kick and shooting for a takedown. Now, that's another question. If Romero gets Adesanya down, will Adesanya be able to make it back to his base? How good is Adesanya's base comparable to working off his back? Because we're not talking about a submission specialist in Romero. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a high-level wrestler who rarely uses his takedown skill set on his opponents. He'd rather stand and bang, right? So if he's able to take Adesanya down, will we see something new? Will we see him try to go in for a submission? Because I'm going to tell you, Adesanya can be submitted. You just can't come in the sport, right? Check this out. You cannot come in mixed martial arts and believe at no point in time that you're not going to run into an opposition that will take you down, and you're going to have to understand and respect their ground game. Now, Adesanya may be that damn talented, but in this level of martial arts that's constantly evolving, you can't transfer over from kickboxing and say, you know what? I made it to middleweight champion. I'm a kickboxer. Who's been able to take me down? Who's been able to submit me? I'm undefeated. It has to come a point in time that Adesanya is going to get that wake-up call. He hasn't gotten it yet. He's been very, very security-orientated and guarding the perimeter. Seriously. And you have to give him his respect. Adesanya has did very, very well with basically maintaining his perimeter and defending it. Mad respect for the guy. when it comes to that. My predictions for the fight, though. Let me go to Bo. He said, "Do you think Izzy got the okay?" Dana, what's good in the building? Salute, man. Thanks for dropping in. Thanks for dropping in, everybody. Appreciate it. Bo said, "I watched Bobby Knuckles talk about his fight with Romero, and he said that Yoel is so fast that he literally disappeared multiple times from his sight during the fight." Man, that's amazing for him, somebody like that to say he disappeared from his sight. I mean, when you're talking about fast twitch fibers, I mean, damn, Yoel Romero, man, is an explosive dude. But, from his early fights to now, I'm just curious, like the slender, more compact ready weapon, in my opinion, is Israel Adesanya, right? When you're talking about the tank, I have to still give the tank, reference to Yoel Romero, because he is that tank when he want to be. Like, we just haven't seen it, though. We know that Romero has absolutely elite level wrestling. If he chooses to go in for the takedown, I believe he'll have success if he was to change levels or even fake like he's going and to keep Adesanya guessing. Don't wait till the last rounds like John Jones did. John Jones tried to commit to a takedown on the third round because he felt like he was behind. He wasn't able to get it, but he was able to get the takedown in the fourth and fifth round. If you look at that fight with John Jones, I was surprised at how quick he was able to get in on Dominic Reyes. Like, we're talking about John Jones not even setting up with a jab, not setting up with a feint. A couple of those takedowns, man, he just went in for the takedown. That's what Yoel Romero needs to do. He needs to basically be unpredictable. He needs to be stealth. If Bobby Knuckles is saying he disappeared out of his sight, he needs to do the same with Adesanya. Real talk. That's what freaking Yoel Romero needs to do. Because right now, you want to talk about bragging rights? Adesanya has bragging rights right now. And I'm going to tell you who ain't loving it. John Jones ain't loving this right now. He's saying, God damn it, this kid, he came in here and people was comparing him to me. He ain't me. You know what I'm saying? He ain't me. I'm years ahead of this guy. He can call me out all he want, but the kid doesn't know what he's into. Like, listen, if by chance Adesanya is able to go in here, not just get the win, but he's able to stop Yoel Romero, that will make all the more hype for Dana White to say, listen, we had Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather in boxing. It made millions. Now, the UFC is not going to wait forever like boxing, y'all. If by chance Adesanya defeats Yoel Romero in dominating, strict fashion, don't be surprised that Dana White makes the fight for Izzy to move up and face John Jones. Don't be surprised that happened, because now's the right time. It doesn't need any build-up. It doesn't need any more hype. It doesn't need any more heat. These two don't like each other. They're similar in body types, similar in striking ability. And literally, both of these individuals has never been beat in the UFC cage. Never. You know what I'm saying? Both of these individuals have the rights outside of Khabib the Magomedov. They have bragging rights right now. They're doing big things. John Jones is considered the GOAT of the freaking UFC. The only reason they're not considering Khabib the Magomedov the GOAT is because his opposition, his freaking body of work. That's all. John Jones has been in there with damn near everybody you can imagine. Machitas. I mean, should we even go down the hit list? Alexander Gustafsson twice, DC twice. I mean, shall we even keep going? Stephen Bonner. Man, John Jones has been in there with some elite level opposition. I'm talking about so much of elite level competition that Adesanya never see. He'll never see that type of competition in the middleweight division. But guess what? If Dana White makes this fight at 205, because John Jones ain't coming down to 185. You must have lost your mind. John Jones ain't coming down to middleweight. If Dana White can make this fight, obviously Adesanya will go in there the smaller fighter, and he will have an uphill battle. All right, because John Jones will be the bigger fighter, the more experienced fighter at that level, and of course, he has more experience in the UFC. Period. He does. Regardless of his suspensions, he has more experience on facing top tier opposition. We're talking about $1 million fight, y'all. We're talking about the biggest fight in UFC history. John Jones, Israel Adesanya, 5 rounds for all the bragging rights on who is the GOAT. Real talk. There's no waiting another year in 2021. I'd be surprised if Dana White let this go any longer if he goes in there and defeat Yoel Romero in dominating fashion. Because the fight fans want to see it. The mixed martial arts fan is different than the boxing fans. Real talk. They're different. You have fighters that have been knocked out several times and continue to get the call. Derek Bronson. You know what I'm saying? Derek Brunson has been knocked out by I don't know how many people still get the call. Alistair Overeem, knocked out several times, still get the call up to fight. And I'm not being facetious or making light of it. I'm just saying the mixed martial arts as a whole, the UFC, they retread fighters, not like boxing. So some of the fighters you will see. So then you have to take in consideration, well, he had this fight on his resume has been stopped by this fighter. John Jones, nope. John Jones fought DC when he was undefeated. Alexander Gustafsson, he fought some legitimate freaking competition. What about Lyoto Machida, man? When you're talking about bodies of work, you can't touch John Jones when it comes to Adesanya, John Jones. He can't be touched. Brad Tavares, Marvin Vettori, no. Derek Brunson, no. Derek Brunson been knocked out by Jacare Souza twice. One in Strikeforce, one in the UFC. Believe me, I've seen it. The man's been stopped multiple times. So for the mixed martial arts fan, this is how they thinking. They like Yoel Romero just a bit because he's a good guy. You know what I'm saying? They didn't like what he did against Tim Kennedy. They was booing the shit out of him. They was like, man, you a fucking cheat. And then check this out. They really didn't like Yoel Romero when he came down and popped dirty, right? But come to find out, he was clean. You know, he went through litigation and he ended up winning $3 million for lost wages, $3 million for emotional damage. You know what I'm saying? And he won another $3 million. So in that particular law, I guess they tripled that. So he ended up whatever. I mean, they double it. He ended up coming out there with like $27 million judgment. So his reputation has been cleared because the UFC has changed levels on knowing that fighters can actually pop dirty from a greedy third party who wants to sponsor them, but they have dirty supplements. Now the UFC is finding that out. And unfortunately, there's a lot of fighters that have went to the wayside because it took John Jones to make that change, like for his metabolites and all that, his picograms and all that shit, right? And you know, Chael Sonnen, he admitted that he was a cheat. So his reputation is what it is. Good guy, very knowledgeable, but he was a cheat. He said it himself. But it's just been other people that have popped dirty that really didn't do it intentionally. Bo said, from your perspective, Why do you think Romero doesn't utilize his superior wrestling, like Khabib, for instance? 9 times out of 10, Yoel will wrestle his opponent. Dana said Izzy needs to keep this fight at a distance. That's a solid point. But once again, like Bo just said about his wrestling, if Yoel Romero isn't using his wrestling, like when he went in there against Chris Weidman, he allowed Chris Weidman to shoot in on him and take him down. Why? Why, Romero? If you had a more superior wrestling, why are you going to allow Chris Weidman, who has wrestling, but nowhere close to your history, your pedigree? Why would you allow him to go in there and take you down? Why? Look, to answer your question, Bo, I have no idea why Yoel Romero isn't adept to shoot in on his opponent just like you're on a firing range. I mean, slingshot style. Seriously, I'm talking about fully automatic, man. Why isn't Yoel Romero that type of guy who has the ability to explode, changing levels and going in there taking his opponent down? Why hasn't Yoel Romero used more of his grappling experience to, once he takes his opponent down, to keep them there and do some damage, or try to go in for a sub, to try to commit a sub? Why? That's a good question. Bo said Whitaker has Range TV. His YT channel has views of fights are pretty nice, and he's honest. Yeah, Romero, Robert Whitaker, man, one of my favorite fighters when he was in here. I think he had, some of the best hands in the business outside Frankie Edgar. In my opinion, Frankie Edgar has some of the best boxing in the UFC. For his height, man, Frankie Edgar had to answer a lot of the times, man, when it came to his boxing skills. I have mad respect for Frankie Edgar. Being as small as he is and his boxing skills, amazing. Amazing. You know what I'm saying? Another person that had underrated, underappreciated boxing was Demetrius Johnson. Very underrated boxing. But sticking to Adesanya and Yoel Romero, my prediction, man, I'm not really good with predictions because I try to go off the scale of their fights, their previous fights. And, I just try to put a gauge on what should I mesh this with. This performance to that performance, and the opponents who has beat that opponent previously. What type of history do we have between opponents with these two individuals? And the opponents really don't make any difference because they're not really what you would call superstars. When you look at the Derek Bronsons and the Brad Tavares, yes, they're quality. Okay, Tavares has only been stopped once in his career. Derek Brunson's been knocked out several times. Like I said, I got to give it a man. I got to say Adesanya is going to win this fight. I just have to say Adesanya because he has the momentum. He's a much more active striker with his kicks and his punches. And if Yoel Romero is going to wait there and not really keep up that pace he gave Robert Whitaker, it's going to be a long night for Romero. Romero needs to open up a pace that Adesanya has to work off his back foot. But like I said before, being a kickboxer, Adesanya has very good exits. Seriously. He's very elusive when he chooses to be. And I've seen Romero chase his opposition too many times. And if he chooses to go in there with Adesanya, he's going to be chasing him and he's going to run into something. And, if you think that Romero cannot be stopped with a shin kick to the head, you're sadly mistaken, man. He can absolutely be stopped. If we get the Yoel Romero that's tired, exhausted, can barely stand on his feet, and we're talking about the 4th round, and Adesanya is looking fresh and still landing kicks, hey, we might see a late stoppage, man. That's real. He might see a late stoppage. You're talking about the person who seriously has respect for Yoel Romero's game, but Early in the career, people want to talk about his weight, which is not what you thought. He just came in there with some weight issues. It's not what you thought. But he's been making weight. He's been doing what he do. But right now, he would always be considered as one of the best fighters in the UFC, not to get a title. I mean, you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be the guy where your Olympic standard is a little bit higher and noticeable than your actual professional standard as a mixed martial artist. Your Romero don't have much longer in the game. He doesn't have much longer in the game, man. I'm being honest. I want to see him go in here and get a big victory, but I'm gonna be absolutely, totally, with integrity. I would rather see Israel Adesanya win this fight because I want to see him against John Jones. I mean, John Jones, I'm an absolute fan of John Jones. He's one of the most well-diverse strikers in mixed martial arts. But right now, Adesanya is on a tear. And you're talking about the best fighting the best, champ. Well, guess what? The UFC wanted to start this champ thing, right? So let's keep it going. You had Conor McGregor in the featherweight and lightweight division. We all seen that come and go. He went on there and fought Floyd Mayweather. And look, Conor was like, nah, I ain't coming back to fight no time soon. It took him forever to come back. And then you had DC, light heavyweight champ, heavyweight champ. I mean, you're talking about this champ movement. What type of level would it catapult Adesanya if he was to go up there and face John Jones and win? It don't matter how you win. If he was to go up there and win on points, he has just shocked the freaking world, man. Adesanya is on a whole nother level. That means that will put him at 20-0. That's only if he's able to get past Romero and he steps up and fight John Jones. Now, for John Jones, of course, it won't do anything else except solidify what we already know, that he's one of the baddest men on the planet. Seriously. It won't do anything. It would just basically say, you know what? We knew you can do it, John. That's what we're talking about. You shut that young rising star down. You made him understand there's levels to this, and that's what we wanted to see. And you might get that. We might get that, people. But he has to take care of business this weekend. And my pick, for sure, is Adesanya. Distance. I'm not gonna sit up here and say, oh, it's gonna be a knockout. I can't sit up here and put that because I don't see Israel Adesanya as a knockout artist, y'all. I don't see Israel Adesanya as a knockout artist. Dana said the RNC is how it's going to end. Submission. From who? Dana. Who? Where's submission coming from? I mean, just be a little bit more clerical on your comment. Like submission from who? Are you talking about Izzy subbing Romero? Okay, I see Izzy in 4. To be honest, if you make that prediction and it happens, salute to you. But how many submissions have we seen in Adesanya's fight from Wilkerson, who he knocked out, from Marvin Vettori, who he went the distance, Brad Tavares went the distance, Derek Bronson knocked out, Anderson Silva, unanimous decision, Kevin Gastelum, unanimous decision. So all of a sudden, he's going to shoot in on a world-class wrestler, and he's going to be able to sink in RNC. Let me ask you this, Dana. How many people have you seen do that to Yoel Romero? How many people have you seen do that? Jacare Sosa couldn't even do it. And that's a BJJ world champion, ain't it? I can't co-sign with that. I can't see Izzy seeking in the RNC with Yoel Romero. No way, no how. And look, Yoel Romero, he may not use his wrestling to come through the door, but you'll find out how quick he really is once you get him on the ground. The acrobatics that he do and how he's able to explode out of positions, the man is freaking levels up. I just don't see Izzy being able to venture into an area where Yoel Romero is still a lethal wrestler, even on the ground. You know how they say wrestlers don't like being on their back? Well, guess what? He's going to have to either put Romero on his back, and it won't be just shooting in for a takedown like Chris Weidman and you know, it's not going to happen. Even Luke Rockhold's jiu-jitsu is to be respected, right? Luke Rockhold really couldn't get a handle and sink in a submission on freaking Romero. So you're going to try to tell me that Izzy's ground game is better than Luke Rockhold? Come on. Come on, Dana. Talk to me, Dana. You think that Luke Rockhold has less of a jiu-jitsu game than Izzy to be able, regardless if he set up a kick? I mean, Rockhold kicks, you know what I'm saying? But to set up a submission on Yoel Romero, you have to have him stunned and hurt. And even then, with the mentality of a kickboxer, I think Adesanya would pounce on him, get top control, dominant position from the top, and he will land punches of anything. I don't see Izzy trying to lay down and put in, you know, trying to lock in a submission on Yoel Romero. Because Yoel Romero, man, to be honest, it's not like he got a long ass neck. Yoel Romero, hey, his head sits on his shoulder, man. You ever look at his wrestling pictures? Look at his wrestling pictures. The dude had a huge ass neck. So if Adesanya was able to put in a choke, he might not be able to sub Romero out, man. You know what I'm saying? It's just a little humor to it, but I don't think he can, man. Nah, Dana. Nah. That first time for everything, no. It's a first time for everything if you're talking about, you know, fighters that's coming in like Ben Askren. And when that knee landed from Jorge Masvidal, it's the first time for everything. Have we seen that? 5 seconds. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's the first time for everything. You know what I'm saying? John Jones being disqualified for 12-6 elbow Matt Hamill. It's the first time for everything. You know what I'm saying? But when you're talking about high-level, high-ranking fighters, it's no way that it's the first time for everything. These fighters are on a whole nother book of instructional techniques when it comes to the gym, when it comes through experience, on-the-job training. It ain't no first time for everything. Especially when you're talking about submissions. We're talking about two fighters who really don't involve themselves with submission game. These are two base style, stance style fighters. Stand up, punches, kicks, takedowns every now and then. That's what you get. But I know what you're saying. I know you want to give it. Look, you want to thicken the plot there, Dana. I know what you're talking about. You want to thicken the plot, man. I get it. But with Adesanya and Romero, man, it ain't no first time for no submission. Look, I'll make a bet with you. I'll make a bet. You know what I'm saying? I'll make a bet. Just because you said it's the first time for everything. If Adesanya subs Romero, I give you $20. That's as high as I'm going on that. I give you $20. I don't even think it's going to even come remotely close to doing that. No way, no how. But on the other hand, if it don't happen, you might want to stop back by and hit the donate button down there and drop whatever you choose to. I'm just saying, if you really believe on the first time for everything, you know, that's the bet. They don't say I'm in a state of denial. It's no denying it. It's what I actually believe in. I'm not denying anything. It's just I've been around the sport for so long. It's just don't go down like that. Let's name some fights. I mean, I can go forever, but I want to stay on topic. I think that Adesanya is gonna defeat Romero. I'm not saying that the knockout is out of the equation, but I think it's gonna go to the decision. I think it's gonna go to a decision. That's what I'm sticking with. No need to be shocked. That's what I'm sticking with. I'm sticking with a decision. I'm sticking with a decision. And you know, just putting all that together, putting all of it together, him winning 27 million, shoot, that might have changed his life. You know, being having that tainted defamation out there to his character, you know, he might have been feeling some type of way. You know what I'm saying? He might not have been at his best, but since he won that freaking $27 million lawsuit, man, the dude might be on a whole nother level right now. Real talk. We might see a whole nother Yoel Romero, to be honest. Seriously. Let me go through the rest of the card. And while I'm doing this, man, I had to break, you know, I want to break some news to you that Weili Zhang, right? She's going to be facing Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And you know what is that Joanna Jędrzejczyk, right? She was already set to somewhat break Ronda Rousey's defense record before she ran in there with Thug Rose Namajunas, right? Thug Rose closed out in the first round, came back, they went 5. And, you know, to seal the deal, just like this fight, and just like John Jones tried to do in his fight with freaking Dominic Reyes, is that I believe Thug Rose Namajunas was basically winning, but she had Joanna Jędrzejczyk is somewhat similar to freaking Israel Adesanya, just thinking strike, strike, strike all the time, a foot chase, and then in the 5th round she went in for a takedown. So she pretty much sealed and shut down the rematch and closed that out the way it should be. So we all know Joanna. She was like trying to find her way, and she went in there and lost against Valentina Shevchenko, one of the baddest women on the planet Earth. So she was trying to find her way. Like, damn, what do I do? Do I move up to 125? Do I stay at 115? What the hell should I do? So now she's facing Weili Zhang on the co-main event of this UFC 248. If you don't know who Weili Zhang is, she's the first Chinese champion. Okay, she went in there and stopped Jessica Andrade, who had just won the belt from Thug Rose Namajunas. Went in there and just shocked the world just a little bit. She shocked it a little bit because she gave Andrade the same energy that she give her opponents. You want to fight with aggression and power and chaos? I'm gonna give it right back to you. And she ended up knocking out Jessica Andrade. Her first title defense, she wasn't even able to defend her title. And I know she felt some type of way being a Brazilian. Of course, Jessica felt some type of way. Now, Weili Zhang goes in there against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, a former champion. Now, when you talk about Israel Adesanya not thinking about the takedown, how many times have you known Joanna Jędrzejczyk to think about the takedown? How many fights can we go back and spin the reel on her thinking about the takedown? She might want to think about that against Weili Zhang. One thing I will credit Joanna Jędrzejczyk is that her striking, she is a very thorough in her Muay Thai and her kickboxing and her hands. She is very thorough with that. But you're going in there with a bull and Weili Zhang, who not only can punch and get with it, but I think she may go in for the takedown and use that little portion that Thug Rose exposed against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She's going to go in for them legs. Because we seen Joanna get closed out when she get put on her back. And man, Zhang, she's strong. Zhang is freaking strong, man. Who is my prediction? I wasn't going to get predictions out on this card just yet because, it's not going down this weekend. So I needed some on Friday to talk about with mixed martial arts. Being in boxing, we don't have a huge fight card. I know we have Efe Jagba. He's facing Kanjanu. If you don't remember, Kanjanu was the one who stepped in there with Luis Ortiz. And the reason why I'm bringing up Luis Ortiz on how he got stopped, because I did an interview with his trainer at the time, John Murphy. So, it's one of those situations where I was thinking, Luis Ortiz, Efe Jagba last performance. How can this work out? I still got to go with Efe Jagba, but that's for a later date. Kanjanu, the way that Luis Ortiz been a southpaw and the way he kind of like threw out that right jab just to point Kanjanu to his right. He's like, he didn't even throw it with any type of conviction enough to do damage. He just wanted to throw that right jab out there to get Kanjanu to move to his right. And then Ortiz stepped in with the straight left, shut him out, shut him down, done, over. But anyway, back to the UFC card. Neil Magny is in there against Li Jingliang. That's going to be a good fight. Lee is 17-5 and Neil Magny is 21-7. Neil Magny at one point in time, man, he was highly touted as the next big star. And he started suffering some losses, man. I really don't know why. His game may not have been evolved. May not have evolved the way it should. Who knows? I don't know. But he's on the undercard, welterweight division. Welterweight division is 170. Alex Oliveira, 19-8-1. Him and Donald Cowboy Cerrone, both of them are Cowboys. They had like a little rivalry going on at one point. And then Oliveira started taking some losses. He's going in there against Max Griffin, 15-7. So these fighters, I could have sworn Oliveira just got stopped maybe a month or two ago. I think maybe less than that. He's back on the undercard against Max Griffin. Of course, it's people that you might not know, whatever. But next, my boy. If I sell Derek Brunson, man, I just got to shake his hand for real. Because Derek Brunson's a different type of dude, man. That's real talk. Derek Brunson, he's the type of dude that something don't work out for him, he go in there and do it again the same way. Let me give you a rundown of Derek Brunson, who he lost to. Robert Whittaker, round 1. Head kicking punches. Anderson Silva, he lost via decision. Yoel Romero, early in his career, UFC fight night. Elbows, round 3. Ronaldo Sosa, head kicks, round 1. Israel Adesanya, knees punches, round 1. Derek Brunson is in here against Edmund Shabazian. Oh, this is canceled. Damn, they canceled. I wonder why. I was looking to see Derek Brunson, see if he changed up his game again. But it's canceled. But he's freaking 11-0, man. But people, that's where I'm at. I just want to come in here and talk some UFC, some mixed martial arts. Shout out to another fighter that I had the opportunity of covering too, man. Shout out to Douglas Lima down here in the A. Him and his brother Diego. I hope to bring you some of that good footage. They opened up a school. I'm really looking forward to covering. Good guy, man. Douglas Lima. You don't know who he is? Go support him, man. Tune in. He's a 4-time welterweight champion, yo. He's about to move up the middleweight. You know what I'm saying? He's about to move up the middleweight and attempt to become the champ in Bellator. Right now, you got Ryan Bader, who's a champ. He's about to move up and face a much larger opponent. Very tough. And I think his next opponent is going to be Gegard Mousasi. Let me check. I don't want to give you the wrong information. But I just saw him. I was just down in the gym talking to him the other day. And Douglas Lima is 32-7, right? It was 7 losses. He's 4-time welterweight champion. He just went in there and defeated Rory McDonald, who used to be in the UFC. But this is what I wanted to get to. His next opponent is going to be Gegard Mousasi, like I said. Look, check this out. Gegard Mousasi, 46-7. He has over freaking 55 fights. Jesus Christ. You know, Gegard's been around for a while, man. For real. And Douglas supposed to step in there April 9th this year. So April 9th, he stepped in there in an attempt to become the welterweight and middleweight world champion. As you probably know, those of you that follow mixed martial arts, he had an astounding fight before Rory McDonald when he shut down Michael Venom Page. You know, Michael Venom Page is like one of those prayer mantis. You know, his striking ability is just unfreaking believable. The way he has his arm down and darts in and out and able to land power punches, movement with speed is just amazing. But Douglas Lima had the equalizer. Like, he had the freaking perfect game plan. And he first shot that outside low calf kick right when Michael Page was trying to come in, took him off balance. And when Michael Page was trying to stand up, he shot that right uppercut right off the chin, clipped Michael Venom Page on the chin. Night. Called it early night. It was done. He closed out Michael Venom Page, man. It was amazing. Like, I'm not saying Michael didn't have some success, you know, pushing him back early on before the knockout, but just the changes that was made with Lima, knowing how Michael Venom Page has that Taekwondo stance, and when he does blitz, MVP, he blitzes with motherfucking authority. And it was amazing to see Lima time him perfectly with a low outside calf kick. And once MVP dropped, he shot that right uppercut, clipped him on the chin, and I'm telling you, MVP was asleep right there. Done. So, man, follow him, man. Him and his brother Diego, good people. Good people. Not gonna lie to you. Hey, but besides that, people, hopefully you enjoyed the mixed martial arts portion. You know what I do. Mixed martial arts, boxing, grappling. That's what it is. World Combat Sports. Be sure and always on time. Follow me on all social media platforms. Much respect. I need the channel to grow past the word. I need to get up to 10,000. You know, I need to get up 10,000 before the middle of the year. I mean, it can happen. For all of you that donate to the channel, appreciate it. Thankful. Subscribe to the channel. Follow me on IG, y'all. And if you follow up on Twitter, you pull up on Twitter, you know, follow me there too. But I will be back on here to the next. Be sure to turn up and tune in to World Combat Sports.